agenda.
Was much more useful and prospering. Oh, yeah.
You ready to go? All right. Good evening. I'd like to call the order of the Board of Trustees regular meeting for August 16, 2011 at 7 o'clock.
Call the roll. Mr. Haddad? Here. Mr. Mahoney?
Here.
Central here. Mr. Genowine is absent. I'm out of the city, I believe.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The approval of minutes from August 2nd, 2011.
I didn't see any change necessary,
I didn't either.
so we stand approved as submitted.
Additions or deletions to the agenda this evening?
I have two things under the fire department.
I have one item under Public Works. Greg Hoffman would like to address the Green Acre Road project.
I have another item under Public Works.
Yeah.
And I have under administration, I'll talk about the water, stormwater, and the OTA.
Okay, thank you.
On the hearing of the public, there was nobody signed in on agenda items.
I signed.
That was the non-agenda.
Well, I wasn't sure.
Oh, okay.
I heard speak about Green Acre.
Okay, well,
You'll have to forgive me if I'm a little mudded. I've got a little bit of a cough, so I apologize. Hope you can hear what I'm saying this evening. So if not, just raise your hand and say something. With that being said, let's start out with the zoning department then, if we could.
we have a resolution in the monthly report.
Good evening. We have a resolution for consideration, 11-141, for mitigation of properties located at 5854 Roan Road and 2635 Villa Drive. Both of these are exceptionally long grass and trees, probably yay high. Letters have been sent, certified mail has been sent. One came back without being signed, so by law, that's all we have to do.
When we get when the property sold through tax sale or sheriff's sale, then how are we actually have a lien on the property? Or what's our ratio of getting paid on those? Is it
When it sells, we
no
get
matter what,
paid.
we're covered. So okay, that's great. I'd like to make a resolution for 11-141, property maintenance for Roan Road and Villa Drive.
Second?
Calling the roll, Mr. Haddad?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Before I get into the monthly report, I had a complaint, I'm getting it right here on my computer, about two homes on Nantucket that their grass is awfully long. One's 4204, the other one's 41. Trying to get it pulled up here. I've got it here on my phone. Let me see if I can get it here. Okay, Okay, 4139 and 4204 Nantucket. These are their addresses. They've got a lot of grass growing up there, and we haven't looked at that. So I wanted to take a look at those two properties, okay?
For July, we had a total of 27 violations. To date, we've had 127. 48 of those 127 are grass-related, and another 8 are debris and grass. So it's most of our activity right now in regards to violations. Building permits for the month, we had 38 permits totaling about $6.2 million. To date, we have 201 permits totaling $18.9 million. We've got 25 new housing starts for the year to date, and that residential new construction there, $4.7 million, is the senior center on Persimmon. This compares last year to about 232 permits, and we had taken in almost $30 million in valuation.
Did we hear any more from Doug Wamsher? I thought we were supposed to vote on that tonight.
We're waiting for the engineering department to come up with a turnaround, roundabout.
Because I don't have that in the back of the right.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, thanks. Everything else is okay?
Finally, BZA and zoning commission cases to date. We've had 14 BZA applications and 19 applications in the zoning commission. The next meeting, you'll have a series of text amendments from that's been approved by the zoning commission to the zoning resolution. That's all I got.
The only thing I'm going to bring up is, everybody said they saw me on the news today, was over the CarMax thing in Kmart. I guess they're going to use a portion of the property, they're not going to use the full property we talked about, and still pending, no one has given us any information about it, no one's asked for a zoning change or anything like that, they have to take out some of the curb cuts, so until we get further information, it's just sitting there. We've had 3 other people who want to look at that property, no one's got anything with it yet, so until we get something physically in writing, they know they're going to put something there. We have to look at the eyesore still. So that's all I have. Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. Greg? Or, sorry, John.
Yeah, the next item is the Public Works Department, and as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have Greg address the Green Acre ditch project, so I'll have Greg come up now.
Good evening. Just an update for the road resurfacing project. Phase 2 entails the Green Acre Road, actually the entire subdivision, White Acre, West Acre. But specifically, we noticed an issue on the drainage portion of Green Acre. We've received several complaints about the drainage ditch, the slope, the depth of the slope, and particularly the slope being the ditch slope starting right at the roadway edge, meaning there was hardly any shoulder. So we sent a letter out to the residents advising that we're performing an inquiry on the project. Speaking with the county engineer's office yesterday, the drainage portion of the project has been completed and installed per design plan. So there was no outlet, so to speak, or no one to go to as far as if the contractor installed the drainage incorrectly or dug the ditch too deep or something like this. It was performed per plan. County engineers by Ohio Revised Code provides these drawings for us. the project drainage portion is complete. It is my recommendation that we look at sort of an extra phase of this drainage project on Greenacre, specifically enclosing the remaining portions of the open ditch. The road department personnel can perform this work. We have in the past, so I feel confident that we have the in-house labor talent to enclose the remaining portions of the ditch. With regards to purchasing the extra material, I'd recommend that we proceed sort of in a two-phase fashion. The worst area, in my opinion, is around a 6,000 block of Greenacre. It's towards the Fairbanks side rather than the Holland-Sylvania side. Regardless, the entire stretch I'm recommending to enclose. The first phase being that we could perform this work before leaf pickup. And the remaining portions of Greenacre we could look at then, if not by leaf pickup, then shortly after leaf pickup. Once leaf pickup starts, the entire department is consumed with leaf pickup. Also, by leaf pickup, by mid-October, some of our other projects will be complete, and we'll close out those accounts, and we'll have some extra money by that point to purchase the remaining stormwater material needed. So my recommendation is to enclose the remaining portions. I'm not interested in finding blame or pointing fingers, who did what, this and that. I'd rather pursue a solution.
Well, I got the same problem too, because I'm worried about the road now sloping. Get some icy patches, there's something's going to go into the ditch, and there's a liability.
And one of the things Greg also mentioned at the very end is the leaf pickup. With that street, with the ditch right next to the street, those leaves will end up in the bottom of the ditch, and it'll be very difficult to pick up. Greg and I did drive down that street, and I agree with his recommendation. And one of the problems is it's kind of haphazard. This house has level ground, and that house has a ditch. There's a driveway with a ditch next to the driveway, and that. So, as Greg says, it was engineered correctly, but engineering on a piece of paper and then actually looking at it is two different things. So, I agree with Greg's recommendation.
Somebody want to make a comment on that? You signed up for that?
I was just going to
Yeah, I'm Ron Matt.
Come on up here.
Go on up. Say name and address and Sorry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ron Madimal. I live at the corner of Holland-Sylvania and Greenacre, and I'm the only
Spell your last name.
Mattimoe. I've been there 24 years. I'm the only one that ever had a ditch, and there's never been a drainage problem. I grew up in Sylvania. I'm 51. I've talked to other residents. They've been there over 50 years. No one has ever had any drainage problems. The pipe at the end of Greenacre in Holland-Sylvania was just replaced 2 years ago. That was dug up and removed during this operation. I have a few things that are going to concern people, which I do agree with Mr. Huffman very much. They do need to be closed up. First of all, other than not being a problem, the property values of everyone's home are going to be affected by this. If you drive down Greenacre and you see all these big ditches, you're going to wonder, why are these here? Do you want to buy a home there when you see these big ditches? Where else in Sylvania do you drive and see this? Nowhere.
No, we'll cover them up. I think we should.
Okay. There's a safety factor that was brought up. There's also the stagnant water that's going to exist and lie in these ditches and breed mosquitoes, rats, whatever. With the leaves lying in the bottom, that's even worse yet.
Yeah.
And where's all the topsoil that was removed from these people's yards? Was it given away or was it sold?
I don't know.
Whose yard did it end up in? When this happened before, when they put the water line in across my yard, they took all my topsoil out, and they brought in garbage, dirt, stones, and, I mean, you couldn't give it away. I'm sorry?
Putting a potted plant on it.
Put a potted plant.
No, I said you can't even potted plants.
Oh, okay. But all anyone has to do is drive down the road. I mean, it's sad that that this was never looked at, obviously, before it was started. Because I originally talked to the men the first day they came there, because they started out at my yard, being the corner, and I seen the prints, and I couldn't believe it. I actually did call Mr. Huffman, I believe the second day after the start of the job. And I told him, I have people park in my ditch. Not only are these pipes going to get plugged up with dirt because they're open, you don't have to be looking too hard to see this is going to happen, but what about when people pull their vehicles in? I've had vehicles stuck in my ditch almost every year I've lived there. I have friends that have big trucks. They're going to run over the ends of these pipes and crush them, and that pipe basically is pretty much useless then at that point. So basically that's all I had to say. And whether people, you're here tonight, whether you got a big ditch in your front yard or not, your property values decreased immensely. So just because that ditch isn't in your front yard, don't ignore this.
We're going to film it.
Thanks, Ron. Kevin, I think we both agree that I appreciate your
I'm going to
comments.
have to do that, because when I was over at Sue's house that day walking down the street with her, I wouldn't want that either.
Thank you for calling, Sue, too.
Sir, did you want to speak?
I just was curious to what number ditches would have to be affected as far as being filled in. I mean, we're looking at, maybe 16 homes that have to be filled in? For cost-wise, just to get an idea.
I don't have the number. I would say it looks like about half of the homes on that street.
We calculated out the piping cost to be about $600 per household.
Right.
So $600 a household, you do it by that $6,000, $10,000 in piping.
We're thinking probably around 10 total.
Yeah, $10,000 in piping, just bringing the soil back in and put it on top of
Because some of them did get filled in.
Yeah.
That weren't before.
Yeah, the ones that already had a fill-in pipe underneath the dirt, those were replaced with the level.
Yeah, there were certain stretches that were filled in, but which left maybe.
it. This was a county thing anyway, so. But it was this county.
You want to come on up? Right? You want to make comments?
My name's Sue Tewitt, 6051 Greenacre. If this was on the books 2 years ago, why did we not get notified until I talked to Neil and Greg had some young guy run a little notice to our front door, just right when this was starting? Why weren't we notified 2 years ago so we could see the plans and be prepared, and now we've got to do over? And the gas and the water taps are all sticking out of the ground, and that's got to be done over? Why? Why? For 2 years, you knew.
That's why I felt bad. That was back during Dee Dee and Pam and Carol Contrato.
It's just not right. Now it's a do-over, which is going to cost more money. You got these gas things and these water things sticking out of the ground that have got to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Lesson learned, guys. Notify these people long before this happens, and then you don't have to do over.
We're going to get more communication going. That's going to be my big thing for this next year.
I hope so.
I want to, yeah.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you. You want to say something?
Just a quick question. When projects from the county come in that affect township property, does someone view that? I mean, and understand what it is that the project entails?
The bad news is that we get the annual projects coming up for 2012. If this is my election year and I'm not elected, then that doesn't tell the next trustee coming in.
I'm not talking about trustee, I'm talking about departments and
But I'm saying the
maybe
departments
just
need,
sitting it there.
that's what I'm saying, we need more communication in these
When that
departments come on
project
board.
comes in on the drawings, does somebody look at that and question the county before they start digging up soil in the township?
Right,
So you're not spending
question the county a little bit on it, but that was OPC funds, so.
Right, and this is, like, let me reiterate that the project was done correctly as far as the engineer is concerned, as far as legal requirements and all that, except when you look on it in paper, it looks one way. When you go down on the street, it's different. And so, we're, through Greg and myself, we're making the recommendations to fill it in because, as the people said, it just doesn't look right. But on paper, the drawings, the engineering, the reports, that all looked fine. I mean, the distance and the pipes and all that. I'm not an engineer, I don't know, but we talked to the engineer's office and everything was done per legal requirements of specs and distance and depth and all that. So when it's on paper, it's one way. When you go out there and look at it, it's...
I think they're great points, and I'm hoping, Greg, that with our website that we're updating, that
Well-
we'll be able to give a notice in the future with projects that are coming up, that we'll be able to enable us to take a look at things like that.
Yeah, I respectfully, I will not engage into finger pointing. The project came up. What is on Green Acre right now is county standard, point blank. I feel we could do we could do a little more. That's what I'm saying. So.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, I got one last thing to bring up under this point in time about, we talked, it's been over a year, about all the streets that our pavement width was 16 to 17 feet. And putting no parking signs on those side streets due to, different things. And everybody thought we were going to be picking on the Cloud House, but we weren't. It was just, even when I came through Rudgate in the woods, there's cars parked on that boulevard. I could barely get through there with my truck, and I got a regular truck. So how are we going to get a safety vehicle down the street in an emergency? If there's road crews working, how are we get them down the street when you have the street locked up? I would like to recommend to Neil that we pass a resolution tonight that we've been putting off about getting no parking signs on narrow streets because, number one, even though we're exempt from liability if a truck hits something or whatever, as a township, I still would like it for a safety feature so we don't have to worry about that incident happening and going through all those repairs. Because we put this off for over a year, so I'd like to get something that we can move ahead and just put no parking. It's not on just one area, there's a lot of areas. We have almost 60 areas we predicted, Greg, a 3-year matrix. Did you see the matrix on this?
No, in fact, I would like to, I may have, and again, I may have, I'd like to review the resolution again before maybe make it for next month or next meeting, so I get a chance to refresh in my memory on that.
Right, I'll have Greg work with Trustee Haddad on that. Talking to John Burrow on this is that the trustees, you don't have to pass a blanket resolution based on distance. You can pick and choose the streets based on safety.
That's what I thought.
You can have one street that is narrow, but
exactly what I
is a hazard, and you can have another street that's wide that
yes,
there's a hazard there. So we'll have Greg work with Trustee Haddad and yourself and come up with a list of streets that will be defined by the resolution, and then the trustees have the power to do a no parking on any street they deem if they feel there's a safety or for whatever cause.
And I'd like to get that by the next meeting done,
All right.
so we can move on this, because just the incident that happened when the motorcycle crashed over there, if there would have been a car parked there, that would have been just like
All right. We'll get that for the next meeting.
Thank you.
thanks, Tim.
Next item is the fire department monthly report.
Good evening. Before you have our July monthly report. On page 2, just a quick highlight. Our structure fires were up slightly again in July, and our false alarms were up slightly in July for a total of 381. On page 3, I think I talked about this last month in June. Due to the hot weather, we did see a slight increase in our auto accidents. This is trauma. June and July are both trauma months, and we do see an increase in our car accidents, auto accidents, and motorcycle accidents. Our cardiac-related emergencies, and also our respiratory distress with all the heat and humidity that we've had. Our EMS runs again in July were up a little bit from last year's trending. Page 4, our mutual aid incidents. We had 13 mutual aid incidents in the month of July. The first 3 were fires where we are first 2, the second and third were fires that we got mutual aid from Toledo and Springfield Township Fire Department. The inland fire was that fatal fire that we had, and it went over quite a while, so we did need their help for a while. The Mitchell Road incident was during the 4th of July fireworks, and we requested a mutual aid from Richfield at that time because we couldn't get out in that area. The other ones on the bottom, towards the bottom of the page, were all requests that we had from Toledo Fire Division. As you know, Toledo Fire Division has had an issue with vacant house fires, and they've requested our assistance on more than one occasion to fill in either at station number 23 or station number 25. Number 23 is on Lasky Road, number 25 station's on Central Avenue. So we have had quite a few fill-ins in the Toledo Fire District. The last 2 out of district, the third to last one was Holland-Sylvania Road, University Parks Trail, where we actually asked Springfield Township for a mutual aid transport unit. Again, because there were no transport units available in Lucas County, we requested them to come with their ambulance and transport one of our injured patients to the hospital. On page 6, the building review and project plan reviews. We had a total of 21 building plan reviews. We're seeing a little bit more building coming in. We did meet with the contractor and the owners of the proposed new site at the Kmart and went over some of the needs that we would like to see in that pre-plan of that building. We also participated in 8 public safety events with children and nursing homes. On page 7 is our training. You'll see that Lucas County Continuing Education, there are no hours during the month of July. July and August are off months for us. We don't participate in any CEUs during that month. The September month, all paramedics will be attending an advanced cardiac life support training. That will be an 8-hour class for the month of September, so you'll see a little increase in the overtime for that. On page 8, personnel hiring, we did promote Lieutenant Mike Fralick to Deputy Chief. We did that a couple meetings, our last meeting. We're quite pleased with that. And we also are in the process of doing the background checks for the written examination that we gave on July 16th. We continue to do our public relations review. Whenever we have a fire, we go back into the neighborhood the following weekend and offer to check smoke detectors for the residents in that immediate 3 or 4 block area. We've had quite a success with that. We found numerous smoke detectors that were not working where we replaced the batteries in them, and we've also installed several smoke detectors in homes that didn't have them. So we think we're going to continue with that public relations review after a fire in a neighborhood. And on the last page, we have a thank you letter from a lady that one of our engine companies went to her house. She had a high CO level that we've tested with our meters in that house, and the guys went above and beyond, set up some fans, ventilated the home, got the CO levels down to where they were livable, at least livable, and we contacted the gas company for her to come out and have things checked. And that's my report, unless you have any questions for me.
I do.
Yes,
a couple things. Number one, as I went to City Council last night and discussed with them the location of Fire Station 1.
Yes, sir.
I brought it to them in an amicable manner that when my brother was on City Council in the city, how they had the big fight over the Lathrop house. That was a big nightmare. Everybody fought. The church was divided over that. The house is still there. The school's still there. The church is still there. Things are back to normal. Nobody cares about that house anymore. I said, this is the same situation on Erie Street for that home with the fire station. There's been several calls I've received from people who want it there. So I'm going to, with the permission of the board, get out and get a petition filled out in compliance with that, and I'd like the administration to move forward and make an offer to purchase pending zoning change of an S1 on that property. If that's okay with Mr. Mahoney, because we need to do that. The levy's almost up on its finances, and we need to move ahead and get Fire Station 1 built. And nobody was in disagreement last night at City Council about this, as long as we can get some people to back it up.
I've been contacted by 2 residents in that area that told me that they would be willing to take a petition in that neighborhood and sign, and that what was the individuals that were at a particular meeting were not necessarily the voice of the whole community in that area. So I was contacted by a couple people with that also.
So I'd like to get that moving to have with the offer to purchase pending a zoning change to S1, because that's the last place that we need to get moving on and get something done. I mean, we've been sitting on this and we've only got a year left to go. So I'd like to get something moving on that. Do you have any opinion about that?
I do. I don't think, you know what, I think that the chief is going to, from what I understand, I thought we were going to have some collaboration with the city and the...
They agree
some of
with
the- Well, when there's 50 people here...
But the mayor just said to me last night that he just made an offer to purchase. Sorry.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I don't mean to
I'm
interrupt you.
sorry,
I
sorry.
hope I did. Okay. But I think, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, and we'll do whatever, whatever we think, obviously, you manage the department.
Okay, thank you.
But I thought we were going to have some collaboration with, and I thought you and I discussed a few things about maybe some scenarios and some issues of people that are like having weather stations at. And I thought there was a little more homework that was going to be done on your end prior to deciding on a site and shooting across the bow without the respect of allowing those people to speak on behalf of themselves.
I'm all open to have an open forum night where we can present the locations that we have done to you and City Council and present them to the people and show them why we feel that this is the best location and the reasons why, the population growth, where we expect the population to grow, where the runs are, where we expect the runs to increase. All those items I think would be, whatever you trustees want, I'm more than willing to abide by that.
I'm thinking, though, that if we don't put an offer to purchase, we're just blowing smoke. Put it in a fire truck. Because, unless we make an offer to purchase with pending zoning change, if the zoning change doesn't go through and that's up to City Council, then the whole deal's out of the water. He showed us the wheels. We've looked at this. We've been discussing this for years. You've only been here for a couple months, but this is something that we need to get moving on instead of just keep waiting, because if we don't buy it till December, and by the time we get the plans made in February or March, and by the time we get up for bid in April or May, we're not going to build till September, and there's a whole other year gone. And I would like to get something at least moving. The worst possible scenario is the deal falls through and we just back out of it. But that was the right location we've all agreed on. Tell me I'm wrong, Chief?
No, that's a location that I would like to see the...
And he's the chief, so there you have it. Let's make an offer to purchase pending zoning change. If it doesn't change, then the deal's over and we're out of it. But that way you can get the conversations going. You're in real estate. You know very well that when I come to you to close on a building, I want to make sure all these things were done by the owner before we get the title change. Otherwise, we don't buy the home. And I backed out many of deals before, we've been at closing because they would have come up with the compliances. So if the compliances don't work and we do that, at least we're moving somewhere in some direction instead of just sitting around doing nothing.
I may suggest that
my
we...
position on it, so I'm comfortable with presenting it as we've discussed and letting the people have some say. I'm not going to ram a fire station down their throat without them having a right to say what's on their mind.
I think we could probably go forward with that plan and do that as we're looking into those other issues of zoning too, maybe.
Well, then I don't even want to bring up the ambulance because Mr. Mahoney probably won't make a decision on that yet. So let's just move on from there.
Okay, let's keep moving then. Thank you.
Nothing else? Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the police department. We have one resolution in their monthly report.
Good evening. You have before you Resolution 11-142 seeking authorization to sell obsolete or unused items. I believe you have them listed there. There are two retired patrol cars and then, pardon me?
Copy machine.
Yes.
Those are the copies there. All right, offer Resolution 11-142, authorization to sell obsolete and unused items for the police department.
Second.
Mr. Haddad?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
You should have before you there the July monthly report for the police department. I won't go through all the stats or anything like that, but I will say dispatch received 1,644 calls for service for police, 399 for fire, and 1,112 calls for service through 911. On the next page, the calls for service. I will tell you, it was already locked into Sire, but we've changed this format a little bit where instead of the current month, the year-to-date, and the change from the previous month, I think it's a lot more relevant to compare year to year. On year form, it's going to just show the previous month. I've got a sheet here, like I said, it was already locked into Sire, but henceforth you'll see the comparison to the year before at the same time to let you know what our trends are. Are we having an up year in burglaries? Are we having a down year in injury accidents? That sort of thing. So with that in mind, and that not being up there for you, just a couple of highlights that I'll give you is the calls for service year to date are 10,303. That's actually an increase of 150 from last year at this time. Tickets were down 10 from last year at this time. Property damage, traffic crashes were up 60. However, on injury accidents, we're down 43 from this time last year. You can see the totals year to date and for 2011. Again, I won't get into all the specific general offense numbers. They're there before you. If you have any questions about any specific items, what we are up or down from July of 2010, I've got them here. I'd be more than happy to answer that for you. Assigned cases in July for the detectives, there were 58, 41 of which were cleared, which carries a balance of 17 that are still active. Our prior assigned cases that were cleared were 22 for total number of clearance of cases of 63 for the month. Community affairs, this is a slower time of the year, so they are really concentrating their efforts on bicycle patrol, especially through the neighborhoods with people out and about, and also traffic enforcement. I will tell you that just today we received our new speed trailer. Our old speed trailer was down with some mechanical problems for the last month or better, and so we're real excited about getting that new speed trailer, and we're going to be getting that out there this week. Pardon me?
We need to.
Right. Well, some of the areas that I've received complaints or community affairs have received complaints, San Luis Rey, I will add though that most of the time when we actually have an officer monitor the situation, we're finding that there's not really a problem there. But San Luis Rey, Colgate, the Nantucket Brookgate area, Stony Brook, and Carskadden are some of the areas that we're going to hit. And instead of hitting it for about a week so that we can move it around a little bit quicker, we're going to go 3 to 4 days at each of those locations, and then I'm sure that there'll be some additional ones. We continue to plan to develop our 32-hour core training, which is a pretty big project that will be conducted in October. I think it's going to be a real good program. I will tell you ahead of time that we're going to have to incur some overtime with that training, but it is 32 hours for every sworn officer in the department, covering a variety of topics. Most of it is going to be scenario type training and weapon retention and shooting and some things like that. And then as far as our dispatch hiring process, we had in the first band of the test, we identified 10 original candidates. Through one voluntary person voluntarily took herself out of the running, and then backgrounds, we've got that narrowed down to 5. Those interviews will be conducted, a peer group interview August 26th, and then an interview with me and the upper command staff August 31st and September 1st. My goal, as I told Mr. Zeitler, is to have our candidates identified by the very beginning of September, so that hopefully in our meeting the 1st of September we might get approval and move forward. It takes about 3 months to get a dispatcher trained and up and running on their own, and my thought is if we can do it at the beginning of September, by the beginning of December, Holiday season, when people take a lot of time off, we won't incur as much overtime because we'll have another dispatcher in place. And with that, I'm free to answer any questions you may have.
Are we going to get any more benefit out of the 911? We can get any more nothing?
As far as an increase?
Yeah, out of the levy, if it passes?
Well, we're working on getting an increase for the fiscal year next year.
And will that help us in anything with the money for the dispatch at all, or no?
Pardon me?
Will that help us with any money for our dispatch at all?
Not for staffing,
Okay.
no.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
The next item on the agenda is administrator. I have two items. My first one is the Resolution 11-144 certifying street lighting districts to the Lucas County auditors. You have the list in front of you. The rate is the same for this year as it was last year. This will then put it on the tax duplicate for those residents.
What is this for? I don't know.
Street lighting.
I know, but I'm just saying, I said before, we get this stuff a couple days before the meeting, and we don't know anything about what it is. What is it certifying, and what does that mean?
You should have, did they have the packet of the individual? On the,
That's all I got.
okay, then they have to sign the individual ones for the signatures. There's a pack.
There is a
Yeah.
packet up here that we will pass down for the trustees, but I think Kevin's question is he's wondering, what is this all about? I mean, it's street lighting.
Right, street,
So maybe we could go through an explanation.
right, these streets here, we put street lighting in for these residents who then agreed to pay the assessment for that street lighting. We get a notice from Toledo Edison of how much on an annual basis that lighting will be, and then we put that on those residents' tax duplicates. So then when they pay their tax bill, the assessment for that street lighting comes into the auditor and then comes back to us.
Okay.
And
I want to make sure that's what it was.
right, that's,
All right, I'll offer Resolution 11-144, approval certification of street lighting districts to Lucas County Auditor for tax 2012.
Second.
Mr. Haddad?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes.
my next item is Resolution 11-145. It's an offer of full-time employment for an administrative assistant position. We're recommending that Samantha, and I'm going to say Bekowitz, who is sitting up... Close enough? Okay. Who's sitting up front there. She has been here as a temporary employee through an agency. She's worked out wonderfully for us, and we're making a recommendation to hire her as a township employee at the rate of $12 per hour, effective August 29th.
Offer Resolution 11-145, extend offer of employment to Samantha.
Second.
You better take it.
I think I will.
All right.
Mr. Haddad?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes.
And then the last agenda item is the fiscal officer, Mr. Simcoe.
Wait a minute, I got a couple things I was bringing up under use.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
That's okay, you can jump ahead. I know I talked too much.
No.
Two things I was bringing up. One is an update on OTA, but I'll bring that up at the end after we're done with the fiscal officer. And I was at Sylvania City too. They're discussing their water tower still. I've been in some plans. I've been to Oregon and talked about a water system for Sylvania Township /city / it would also extend into southern Michigan and possibly down into Springfield, Spencer, and those areas. And everybody keeps thinking, well, you keep wanting to separate yourself instead of regionalize. It says, Toledo's system is so old and antiquated, they've reduced the flow of water to the city of Sylvania. That's why they're building the additional tower. I'm saying let's build a system out here that we can utilize for our area, keep our rates reasonable, and if Toledo breaks down, at least we have water, because right now, if Toledo breaks down, none of us have water on this side of the county. They're all going to have it on the east side because Oregon has a water system, and it won't supply one drop to the west. So we're going to have to start doing something instead of talking about it and get moving. I know Mr. Mahoney wants to talk about it for a year, but that's okay. No. I want to get this moved on, Stephen.
Kevin, come on.
I'm teasing you.
That's wrong.
No,
Please.
it's
No,
not.
it's really unprofessional.
I know, but-
I deserve more respect than that.
I don't
Please.
know. Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
But-
But what I want to do is I want to get moving on it, and I'd like to get that going with the permission of the township here that we're going to be working on. I've talked to the Siemens Corporation. I've got 2 developers who are willing to develop the system. The maximum price is going to be $30 million. Maximum price. We should get 50% of it supplemented through the government from the state and the federal. But we should be able to get that money, and the rest of the money is going to come from in-house and the residents paying it back through a bond value. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
This would be a joint with the city of
Joint with the
Sylvania.
City of Sylvania, they asked me to look into it. I got a meeting with Kevin Ayler from the county, who's now their
Public service.
public service director, so we'll be working with them. Stormwater update, I went to the county, spent 2 hours down there with Brian. I got our stormwater packet of what they're going to be sending in for the application for the stormwater to Lynette. I talked to Lynette Hammershow and her boss, and we should have it, so I'll give her name properly. We have the stormwater paperwork. I think we need to start getting our own application going and separate from the county, because Brian said they're going to be collecting all of 2012 money, which is 2011 tax money, and they're not doing anything next year about any of the projects till 2013, because they want to build up a reserve, is what I specifically stated in our meetings before, and I want that on public record. That's what I was worried about. They're going to build up a ton of money, use our money everywhere around the county, and we're not going to see any results out of it. So there you go. So with that, go ahead, I'm done with you.
Is it, on the water system, should I contact City of Sylvania on that? And
You can contact Kevin and get a meeting together, because I want to get moving. They've got all the records of Jeff Ballmer. Didn't care about showing them to me because he was leaving it.
right, okay. I'll
So they've got their old records, but Oregon system, they put their expansion on just now, which won't provide most of Jerusalem, even though they're still only a third developed compared to us, which we're 90%. And we need to start getting water out here before I told everybody the rates from City of Toledo are going up triple. I mean, people don't realize that they went up on the first level, and people said, oh, well, my water bill went up. Well, it's going up again. It's going up again. And that stormwater thing is going to be $50 a year starting next year on our taxes. And then also they're going to be raising sewer rates because Jim Shaw wants that solid waste thing on there, because they don't need to pick up garbage anymore, and we're paying the government for nothing. To me, close up the department if you don't need it anymore. Why spend more money on it? Not like police, fire, and roads. It's, solid waste, which allies take over and stop privatized now. Okay, that's all I have to stand there. Sorry.
Thank you, John.
Fiscal Officer, Mr. Simcoe?
Well, just briefly, our month-end analysis is up on the screen, and things continue to move along pretty much as we've expected. Our revenue is holding fairly steady along with our projections. We anticipate getting additional monies in toward the end of this month in September from the second half of tax collection. And so you'll see the revenues will jump up some, but then that should be more or less the last monies that we'll be getting in from the county. So it'll even out, but our projections for revenues are pretty close to on track. The same is really true with our expenditures. Either as I think I said last month, we're kind of lucky on revenue and expenditures, or we're very good, and there's probably a little bit of both with our department chair people staying in line with their expenditures, so not to get themselves out of hand. You'll note the road and bridge fund is the only one that seems to deviate a little bit on expenditures, but as we say about every other time, that the road and bridge fund kind of has a tendency to go up and down, and that in the expenditures, because there's busy times of the year and slower times of the year for them. There are a couple of funds that aren't really included in that road and bridge fund. The permissive tax fund, we have not had to get into that fund at all so far. We've been saving that money. We have about $554,000 in it. We've not gotten into that fund. And the motor vehicle tax fund of $70,000 is not as large, but still the road and bridge fund and the police and fire fund and the general fund, I've said this before, and I'll say it if it becomes contrary, but our managers, our department people have been doing a good job of holding the line. We're getting better and better at realistically assessing what our needs are. We tell people that there's to be no padding in the budgets. We need their honest estimates to come up with numbers, and I think that we're doing a good job at that. And our department heads and John Zeitler need to be congratulated, and Jim Beck, who keeps a heavy thumb on people as far as expenditures go. And so we do recognize that taxpayers' money that we're handling, and so we try to be as prudent as we possibly can with it. And the only other thing I'll mention is that we do try to keep our funds invested here at the township that aren't being, as money comes in, it's not always expended, so we try to keep those funds invested. Now, 3-4 years ago, it was a treat to sit up here because I could feel really good and say that we were getting a lot of interest income that was coming into the township, and we were actually like the fiscal department was a money producer in that. And so, you could feel kind of good about it. But right now, the interest rates are low and poor. We in Star, Ohio, which used to be a very good place, it's the state treasurer can send money down to the state. The current interest rate down there is 0.04%, not 4%, 0.04% in that. We do though, and the rest of our accounts are basically running along in CD rates at 0.5%. And so it's discouraging when you sit there and but on the other hand, the goal that we have is principal preservation. We're not into anything that can risk taxpayer dollars when we're investing. We have an investment committee. Jim Beck sits on it. John Zeigler and Neil is on the committee, and along with myself. And so we do. All of our investments are not out there long. We're basically in a 26-week time because it's unpredictable right now as far as what rates are doing. We try to be very careful with the money and trying to get some money coming in without taking any risks, frankly. We're risk adverse in the township with our funds. And so we do make some money, but it's not like the good old days when we were kind of really getting 5 to 6%. I don't know, it was great, but it's not right now. But on the other hand, we are making some money. And so I think financially we after we're in 7 months now, we're still in good condition. The township has weathered some of our financial situations that other governmental entities are struggling more. We've been fortunate, knock on wood, our receipts are still coming in fairly well. And so we have some comfort in that. But we along with that, though, we do really are watching our expenditures. We're doing as best we can to be prudent with the dollars. And everyone's got that at a priority. The department has. So I think that we're benefiting from that as fiscal officer and trustees. And so we do have one resolution. That's all I have. We have one resolution on the agenda tonight. Mr. Beck, our finance budget director, will present that.
Thank you. Resolution 11-143 is to increase the appropriation in the fire department for cell phone allowance. We stopped having our own cell phones, and we're paying an allowance to the individuals to carry their personal cell phones. It's a nominal amount, but it's saving us money there. But I do need to increase that particular line item to cover those monies. The other two items are in the police grant fund, where we've gotten additional monies in to the fund, and let me get this up here for you so you can see it, into the fund that we didn't anticipate, and they want to be able to spend it. So in a lot of cases, if you don't spend it, you're going to lose it. So I'm asking for an increase in the appropriation in two line items in that particular fund. Right there they are.
I make a motion for, or offer resolution 11-145, offer resolution for 11-143, increased appropriation from encumbered balance.
Second, but before we vote, I want to ask Chief, what's our policy on officers driving with their cell phones?
Driving with their actually using them?
Yes.
It's prohibited.
Okay, because I saw an officer driving yesterday. I don't want to say who it was, but I want to make sure that's reiterated to the officers that they cannot use their cell phones while they're on duty. Because there's a lot of things going on.
On duty or driving?
All right?
You mean driving?
Driving.
While they're driving?
Driving.
Okay.
He was driving on Sylvania Avenue. I won't mention anybody's name or nothing. Just make sure it's reiterated, and the next time I catch this individual, I'll let you know who it was.
Okay.
Okay? Because I think that's what the least we can do. So with that, go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
Okay, Mr. Haddad?
Yes.
Mr. Maloney?
Yes.
I have one other thing I'd like to mention. We did, the last 2 days, they were here training us on the ICMA benchmarking, and we do now have all the templates. We will be gathering data for those particular templates and reporting. It's due March the 15th of next year. All the information is due. We'll be putting that together, submitting it, and then about a month after that, we'll be able to get all the reports back that we can start comparing and looking at particular areas within each one of the operations. So
that's going to be specific for our departments only, not
No,
for
that's-
other people around?
no, that's for the police, fire. It's our
No, but I mean
department.
for our department.
Right, but we'll be able to
Benchmark is against other people?
right other comparables.
What bothers me is that we're Sylvania, Ohio, and this is how we live, and this is what we're doing, and to compare it to somebody in Louisiana or somewhere else where their economy might be better, or West Virginia where they have a great economy, how do we compare ourselves to them when our governor just cut everything we have coming into townships, and we're going to suffer and have to try to do something? I don't understand what benchmarking is going to do. It's kind of like the saying from The Wizard of Oz: if you don't look at the grass in your own backyard, then it's not there.
Well, I think you're going to have to, my opinion is you're going to have to take a look at these items and look at the situation in all the areas. And there's going to be several areas that are going to be comparable that you can look at. I mean, as an example, you can say, how much are we spending per capita for police or for fire? And that's something that, irregardless of what the economy is, okay? You're going to be able to start comparing.
Springfield Township Springfield, Ohio, there's a township very similar to ours, and I think you and I talked about some of the very similarities when we started this program.
Right.
One thing I would like to say, Dave, you've done a wonderful job with this, looking at all of our investments and what's the best way to get to. Jim, you too. You guys both have kept this thing rolling, and I just, for the record, wanted to say you have been very fiscal. So thank you very much.
Very fiscal.
You like that?
Yeah.
All right.
We now have open discussion.
Well, I'm going to bring up that I was the only person from our area that went to the OTA summer sessions because I was a presenter there, and I was talking about how we do more with less, which I have a copy up here. If anybody wants a copy, I'll make a copy and give it to you. What we're doing in the township, what we've done so far to save money, and how we're moving forward. But there was a lot of things because with the new budget, we're going to be cutting a lot of funding to townships over the next few years. And I don't want to increase taxes. And a lot of this is going to loom on what happens with Senate Bill 5 at the election this year. So we'll have to see how that ends up one way or another, how it's going to work on everything. They also talked about things about cemetery maintenance and insurance, and that's where I said, as a liability, I was worried about the parking on the streets and the boulevards where you can't get through. So, as a liability, I want to make sure that we're not stuck with that. So that's it, and then I have the paperwork off here. It was a nice whole day course, and it was done for me.
And for the public, I just might add that when Trustee Haddad says OTA, that's the Ohio Township Association. That's an organization composed of all the townships.
In the state of Ohio. Over 1,200 of them.
Next item is hearing of the public non-agenda items.
Oh, okay.
Do you have the...
Ron, I know you were signed. Anything else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, thank you. And then Stan Edson. Sorry if I didn't pronounce that right.
Yeah, no, you covered everything that I was talking about.
Okay.
You can go up to the microphone and speak your name.
Sue?
Thanks.
Sue Tewitt, 6051 Greenacre. I just had one question that I forgot to ask, and I understand that our roads in our subdivision are going to be crumbled, and I wondered if there was a date on that. Are we going to be notified of when that's going to happen?
The road resurfacing is scheduled told anywhere from 10 days to 3 weeks.
Okay.
From
Now,
today.
are we going to have to put a sign at the end of our street, or is somebody going to notify us, or?
There shouldn't be any traffic concerns. The roadway will be open.
Just take one lane off, or?
Yeah, there'll be flag people,
Okay.
flag persons there.
I just don't want our neighbors to be surprised about this project, too.
We really have no control over that. It's the contractor will offer maybe a 2-day, 3-day notice. They'll have other projects that will cancel. They might move in before I even know about it. I hate to say it, but I mean, we're given anywhere from 10 days to 20-day, 25-day notice.
Can you tell us who that is?
It's Gerken.
Gerken Paving.
So I could call them?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Cindy Castor, C-A-S-T-O-R.
C-A-S-T-O-R.
Yes, sir. 5043 Westbourne. I would just like to bring up, there's been a new establishment on Monroe Street. I've had to report noise disturbance quite often. It's Bar 145. I live in a very quiet neighborhood. That's why I moved there. I've been there for 7 years. And this is the first year that I've had to call the non-emergency line for the Toledo Police, because it's actually in the Toledo jurisdiction, in order to report that. I'm also a nurse. You know, I work 7A to 7P. I have to get up at 5:30, and to have to call at 1:30 in the morning, you know, to report this is getting to be a little bit of a nuisance. And so I guess I would like to learn how one would go about, since we live in Sylvania Township and it affects the communities there, but the establishment is in Toledo jurisdiction, how one would go about doing something about that.
Cindy, thanks for your question. In fact, funny, when I got your email this morning, thank you very much. I hope you got my email back.
Yes.
I talked to the chief today about that, and chief, please jump if I'm wrong. You're going to touch base with Chief Navarre on this, and hopefully put them on alert, let them know we've got some citizen concerns.
Yes.
Okay.
See if we can come to some kind of resolution, because unfortunately, because as you said, it's in Toledo's jurisdiction.
Mhm.
You know, we can't really take any enforcement action ourselves.
Okay.
So it's my hope that in alerting him to the problem, that you know, they may have. I hope they do. I mean, Toledo's a big city that, you know, unfortunately, that may not be a priority for them. But
And it often isn't, because if I hear it up until 2 o'clock in the morning, I don't bother calling anymore, because they close at 2:30. So, but still, I think that's a bit much.
Well, I will talk to Toledo Police, and even though they are in Toledo, like some things in police work, I might be able to go over there and somehow convince the owner that it might be in their best interest to try to tone it down a little as far as our potential enforcement action down Monroe Street or whatever.
Is there something I can do to file a formal report?
Yes, what I was going to say to you is that City Council has their special meetings of their different departments. I'll find out when that department meets.
Okay.
And I'll get you and a couple other people from the area, because I live down the street there too, but not too close. But we can go down and make a presentation to them that we'd like something done with the noise statute, because it is too loud over there. I was sitting in the place I had to walk out, it was too loud for me. Even when I was there for 5 minutes, I just left. So I can imagine sleeping behind there. So I will let you know when they're having their public hearing, so we can get to here and talk to their department, because they won't let you talk to their council meeting.
Okay.
So I'll get you the date and time, and we get a bunch of us over there and talk to them about that.
Very good then.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Thank you.
Is that all the items then?
That's it.
Somebody else wanted to speak? Is there anybody else? Carol?
Oh, Carol.
Carol Lynch here, Brandy Lane, Sylvania. At the city council meeting last night, they did talk about one thing that I thought might interest you on the water aspect. I don't think that Mr. Haddad was there at the time that they went over this. But last week in Toledo, evidently Toledo had very serious problems with their water system. Their pumps were down. And in the contract with the city of Sylvania, if they have difficulties, they can actually shut off the water to Sylvania. And evidently they were very, very close to shutting it off last week when they finally got the pumps going again. And the service director for the city of Sylvania stated that if they had shut off the water to Sylvania, we would have been under a boil. We would have had to boil our water for one whole year. Now, I was absolutely astonished at that, but that's what he said. And, you know, obviously, I think that would have been very difficult for people to do. So, you know, regionalism may be great, but the system that you control yourself is the one I'd certainly like to see out here. So I think, you know, if we can look at a water system for the township and the city, it would be a great thing to look at.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Hearing no other items, make a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn at 8:06.
Second.
Yes.
Yes.